In this class, we will try to learn what are the isotopes, isotones, isobars, isodiaphers, and isostars. And finally, we will try to find out one short method which can be applied to solve different kind of questions quickly in JEE and NEET paper. So first, we will try to learn about isotopes. So what are basically isotopes? So there can be different atoms of the same elements which in which the number of protons can be same but the number of neutrons can be different. So those can be called as isotopes. Now if the number of protons can be same, then we can say that the atomic number will be same, and if the number of neutrons will be different, then we can say that the mass number will be different. Now we will go through an example. Say for example, we are taking 13 13C6 and 14C6. Now, these are the two atoms of the same elements, that is carbon. Now, in this case, in both of the atoms, that is 13C6 and 14C6, if you are calculating the number of protons, you will get number of protons which will be equal to 6 in both of these cases. Whereas if you are trying to calculate the number of neutrons, then in the first isotope, that is 13C6, the number of neutrons will be equal to 7, whereas in the second case, that is in case of 14C6, the number of neutrons will be equal to 8. So these are called isotopes where the number of protons will be same and the number of neutrons will be different. Or in other words, you can say that the atomic number is same, that is 6, and the mass number will be different, that is 13 and 14. We are taking another example. For example, we are taking this 35 chlorine 17 and 37 chlorine 17. Now, these two atoms are of the same element, that is chlorine. Now, if you are trying to calculate the number of protons, then in case of 35 chlorine 17, the number of protons will be equal to 17, and in 37 chlorine 17, the number of protons will be also 70. So, number of protons will be equal in nature. But if you are trying to calculate the number of neutrons, in the first case, the number of neutrons will be equal to 18, whereas in the second case, the number of neutrons will be equal to 20. So, number of neutrons are different. So, therefore, these are called the isotopes. And once again, the definition can be in other words like the atomic number is same, that is 17, whereas the mass number is different, that is 35 and 37. So, the definition can be of two types. Like one can say different atoms of the same elements can have same number of protons and different number of neutrons. Those can be called as isotopes. Or you can say that different atoms of same elements can have same atomic number and different mass number. That can also be called as isotopes. Okay, so now we will go through the next thing, that is isotones. Now what are the isotones? So isotones are the atoms where the number of neutrons are same, whereas the number of protons are different. So we are taking one example. For example, we are having two atoms, that is 3H1 and helium 42. So now in these two cases, for example, in 3H1, if you are calculating the number of protons, it will be equal to 1. Whereas in case of helium 42, the number of protons will be equal to 2. If you are trying to calculate the number of neutrons in both these cases, it will be equal to 2. So the number of protons are same in these two cases, whereas the number of neutrons are 2 in these two cases, whereas the number of protons are different. In case of 3H1, the number of proton is 1, whereas in helium 42, the number of proton is 2. So therefore, these are called as isotones. We are taking another one example. For example, we are having three atoms like 14C6, then 15N7 and 16O8. So we are having atoms of carbon, nitrogen and oxygen. So if you are looking to these three atoms, then you can determine the number of protons are 6 in case of carbon, 7 in case of nitrogen and 8 in case of oxygen. So number of protons are different in all these cases. But if you are trying to calculate the number of neutrons, then in all these cases the number of neutrons will be equal to 8. So number of neutrons are same. So therefore these three atoms can be called as isotones to each other. So now we will go through the next topic, that is our next topic is isobar. Now what is basically isobar? So isobars are basically the atoms with same mass number. So basically the summation of number of protons and neutrons would be same. For example, if you are taking argon 4018 and calcium 4020, in these two cases you can see that the number or the mass number are same, or you can say that the total number of neutrons plus protons will be same. That is, in the first case total number of neutron plus proton is 40, whether in the second case total number of neutron plus proton will be 40. So therefore these are called as isobars. We are taking another one example. For example, we are having two atoms, that is hydrogen 31 and then helium 32. So in these two cases also that mass number is also same, that is 3, or you can say that the total number of neutrons plus protons will be same, which is equal to 3. So therefore these two atoms are isobars to each other. So now we'll go through the next topic, that is isodiapher. Now what is basically isodiapher? So isodiaphers are basically those atoms where the difference in neutrons and protons, or you can say that the difference in number of neutrons and protons will be same. For example, if you are taking two atoms like uranium 23892 and thorium 23490. If you are calculating the number of protons in case of uranium, it will be equal to 92, and in case of thorium the number of protons will be equal to 90. So number of neutrons in case of uranium will be equal to 238 minus 92, which will be equal to 146, and in case of thorium the number of neutrons will be equal to 234 minus 90, which is equal to 144. Now, if you are calculating the difference between number of neutrons and protons in these two cases, in case of uranium, the difference, that is neutron minus proton, will be equal to 146 minus 92, which is equal to 54. So now in case of thorium, if you are calculating the difference between neutrons and protons, will be equal to 144 minus 90, which is equal to again 54. So the difference between number of neutrons and protons are same in case of uranium 23892 and in case of thorium 23490. Both are 54. So therefore these are called isodiaphers to each other. So isodiaphers are basically the difference in number of neutrons and protons in different atoms should be same. So now we have already come to our last topic, that is isostar. So what are basically isostars? Isostars are mainly those molecules where the number of atoms will be same and the number of electrons will be same. So molecules with same number of atoms and with same number of electrons can be considered as isostars to each other. So now we are taking one example, that is CO2 versus N2O. So now in case of CO2 there is one atom of carbon and two atom of oxygen. So therefore total number of atoms in case of CO2 or in one molecule of CO2 will be equal to 3, whereas in case of N2O there are two nitrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. So one molecule of N2O will contain total 3 atoms. So basically the number of atoms are same in case of CO2 and N2O. Now, if we are calculating the total number of electrons, then we can say that the carbon contains total 6 electrons and 2 oxygen will contain 2 into 8 electrons. So, total number of electrons will be equal to 22. So, now in case of N2O, these 2 nitrogen will contain 2 into 7 electrons and 1 oxygen will contain 8 electrons. So, total number of electrons will be again 22. So, in CO2 and N2O, the number of atoms are same and the number of electrons are also same. So, therefore, these can be considered as isostars to each other. So, finally, we will try to learn one short trick which can be very much effective to solve different kind of tricky questions in NEET and JEE paper. So basically, what are the isotopes? So in case of isotopes, this iso means same, and this P represents proton, right? So atoms which are having same number of protons can be called as isotopes. This is as simple as that. Now in case of isotone, this iso means same and this n means neutrons. So atoms with same number of neutrons can be considered as isotones. Now in case of isobar, this iso means same and this B means both neutron plus proton. So where the summation of neutron plus proton will be same, those can be called as isobars. Or you can say where the mass number will be same, those can be called as isobars, because the summation of neutron plus proton means that the mass number. So the atoms which are having same mass number can be considered as isobars. Now in case of isodiapher, we can say that this iso means same and this D represents the difference between neutron and proton. So that is n minus p. So same n minus p, same difference between neutrons plus protons. So atoms which are having same difference between neutron and proton can be considered as isodiaphers. Now what are these isostars? So iso means same and these S represents that is same. So what is the same? That is same number of atoms and number of electrons. So same number of atoms and electrons. So the molecules which are having, or the molecules containing same number of atoms and electrons can be considered as isostars. So this is the shortest trick to remember, and it can be very much effective to solve different kind of questions in NEET and JEE paper. So thank you very much for watching this video, and if you like this video, please subscribe this channel, and see you in the next class. Bye bye.